Mrs. Kolitangani, Philippa, Dean in Saukhan, Mr. Prasad. I can't see the newly elected president of the Canberra Girmit Association. There he is, Ashok Kumarji, and brothers and sisters. First of all, as you've heard the saying, square meals make round people. I enjoyed the meal tonight because it reminded me of Fiji, real Fiji food, and I'd like to thank all the ladies who have been behind the scenes, who produced a lovely meal. Preceding the function tonight was the Ramayana Mandali. The Ramayana Mandali is very much a feature of the real traditional Fiji Indian religious ceremony, because the earliest arrivals in Fiji were great believers in the Ramayana. But I think there are a couple of things that need to be cleared out. I'm speaking here on behalf of the Hindu Council of Australia this evening, and I bring the apologies of Mr. Mehta, who is the president, who is in Sydney attending another meeting. But also with us today is Mr. Santosh Gupta, who's sitting there quietly enjoying his meal, and he is the chair of the Hindu Council of Australia. Please stand up and be seen, Santosh. He is the chair of the Hindu Council of Australia in Canberra. Ladies and gentlemen, just a couple of things. You've heard all about Girmitias, but let me explain to you why the Girmitia system was developed. And another thing that I'd like to say is that who consisted of the people who came in the Girmit era. Now, this is going to be probably something that's not really always discussed. But India was a colony under different rules well before the British came, and when in 1879 the Girmitias came to Fiji, over 100 years before then, the British had come and taken over the colonization of India itself. Prior to that, India was for about 800 years under a different rule. Now, it's very important to remember that the British were there for 200 years, but prior to that there was a subjugation before that. Why did the Girmitia system start? And incidentally, for you to know, Girmitias, as has been explained, came from India specifically. Why did they come? What happened? Well, about 200 years ago, the slavery of human beings was discontinued. At that time, slaves were taken from all over Africa and many other countries to work in different plantations all around the world. And slavery was a system that subjugated humanity far worse than any other human period is concerned. It became such a scandalous affair that the world decided that something should be done about it. The second thing was that the British colonial system was getting bigger and bigger in many ways. And at the time that the British were in India, At the time, the British were increasing or spreading their wings, and they were trying to colonize China. You might have heard of the Opium War. Well, the Opium War started with the product that came from India, which our forefathers and our people were producing in Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. Bihar and Uttar Pradesh were the providers of opium to the British to subjugate China. And you might have heard of the Opium War that took place between China and England. What was happening is that the people of Fiji, who came from predominantly Bihar and Uttar Pradesh as the initial Girmit, were subjugated to produce opium so that they could take opium to China, to which they were addicted to in great numbers and great proliferation. What happened is that China could not do that. They could not subjugate, Britain could not subjugate China. As a result of which, what could they do that would substitute their money and their funds? India had a lot of people in Bihar and Uttar Pradesh who were very hard-working people. They had been regimented into agriculture, and whilst they had the great products of coal and other resources in Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, they had a lot of people whom they could use in the proliferation of the colonies that Britain was producing also. And the colonies were in Africa, the colonies were in the Caribbean and other parts of the world. And where could they get the cheap labor to go and work for them? Well, they tried to use the Chinese to go to America as the coolies. The word coolie is not new to, it may sound to you as it was applied only to Indians. But in fact, the word coolie was the first word for the Chinese, who were being sent to America and to other parts of the world as semi-slaves, and they were known as coolies. In their advance to have more and more colonies, they needed to populate those areas and to generate funds which would be expatriated to Britain in its expansionist program. So what happened is that the first country where they could send laborers to support their colonization was Mauritius. Mauritius in 1930. And that started what we say in Hindi, a bouchard of people and Indian people under the agreement system, which was a substitute for the slavery that the Africans were subjugated to, took place. So what happened is that they started an agreement to appease the people. They said, we are not making them slaves. We have an agreement with these people for 5 years or up to 10 years. And then that started the Girmit system, which was not necessarily something that started in Fiji, but which was perpetuated and included Fiji. Fiji was amongst the last countries that came in as a colony of Britain. It was the Girmit system in Fiji was from 1879 till 1960 legally, but until 1920 people were still being brought to Fiji. So I just thought I'll share that with you. The only other point I want to make is that people who came to Fiji as Girmitias were Hindus, there were Muslims, there were Sikhs, and there were people, I believe there was a smattering of Christians in between them too. Sorry? Tamils came in 1903. From 1879 to 9, there were emigration of people from Bihar and Uttar Pradesh. In 1903, the first South Indian people, who were Tamil, Telugu and Malayali speaking people, they were brought to Fiji to work because the people in Bihar and Uttar Pradesh were revolting. There was too many people, there was too much uprising, many people being, displaced. So there's a lot of history, and I just thought I'll share that with you. The Hindu Council has got 60 branches throughout Australia, and it's doing a great job. It has been a wonderful working with them as their vice president. I just wanted one last thing to say, that in this room, there are 3 people who have been presidents of this temple. Kamal has said that he is the manager of this and he's doing a fantastic job. But so have people like C.K. Prasad, who have done a fantastic job in the past. If you see the first accommodation of the priest there, it was because he fought in a court against the ACT government, who had refused to give us permission to build the priest's quarters. C.K. Prasad was the person who went and fought for us. And we were able to then please give him a big hand. So he's been doing a lot of work for us. And today we have the priest's quarters. But I'd like to acknowledge some more people. One, Ashok Kumar is a past president of this temple. And there he is sitting there very quietly, not saying much, but thank you very much, Ashok. The second person who's been president of this temple is Muneshwar Sahat. He has done a fantastic amount of job. But there's 2 things that I also wanted to say.